welcome, you beautiful bookish people. If you're new here, my name is Brooke and I like to read fantasy books. Now this video is so overdue because I never did an October wrap up. So we're just gonna kind of smush the October-November wrap up into one video. So yes, I know this is gonna be a lot of yapping. It's gonna be kind of a long video as far as a wrap up goes, but it's gotta be done because I want to tell you about every single book that I read in the last 2 months. Let's just jump right into it. The first book that I read in October was Silvercloak by L.K. Stephen. This one I ended up giving 4 stars. I had so much fun with it. I think this magic system is super unique and the story was really refreshing as far as like a fantasy goes. And it's sort of like a mature mafia Harry Potter. That doesn't make sense, but if you read it, I hope you know it will make sense. This story is about Saffron Kaloran, and a long time ago there was this group of magic wielders called the Blood Moons, and these Blood Moons murdered her parents. So she lies her way into an academy of the most elite, not soldiers, I guess detectives, I guess you call them, called the Silvercloaks. Basically the Blood Moons' rivals, and she lies her way into this academy to become Silvercloak so she can take down the Blood Moons, and she actually gets the opportunity to go undercover to take down these Blood Moons, but she starts falling for the Kingpin's son, which is really interesting, and he's very tortured. And it's really interesting because it kind of involves a little bit, it's called time weaving, which when you play with timelines, it gets a little confusing, and there was one thing that made it not a 5-star for it was feeling like 5 stars, but there was one thing that happened that really pissed me off, that it's one of my least favorite tropes. And it kind of felt pointless to do that trope, and it just was like, I'm excited to see where the next book is gonna go because of what happened, but it also just like, it irks me when that trope happens. And I've mentioned it in Brimstone, I mentioned it in the comments of one of my videos. It's hard to tell you without telling you. But 4 stars, solid read, definitely recommend. The next book that I read, I have a little bit of mixed feelings about. I read Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which is the sequel to Bride. Now, when I read Bride, it was kind of early on into my reading journey, and I really enjoyed it, but now looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, my reading taste has definitely evolved, and I wasn't a huge fan of this story. I think it was fine. It's got werewolves, vampires. The first book is about a girl that's basically political collateral, and she marries a werewolf. She's a vampire marrying a werewolf, and werewolves and vampires don't get along, but it was basically just like a truce, and so it was kind of their story. And in this one, this follows a set of characters that you meet in the first book that are side characters, and they're both werewolves. It was fine. I mean, I love how Ali Hazelwood writes. She's very snarky in a way that's not cringy. I feel like there's a little bit of modern language in here, which at first I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, but it kind of worked. And I think I gave it 3 stars, which 3 stars is not bad. Now looking back on it, I probably would give it 2.5 because I have not thought about this book pretty much at all since I finished it. Again, it was fine. I don't have any strong feelings about it. It's just kind of there, and you know, it was a read. I can check a book off of my list, I guess. That's all I really have to say about this one. Now here we're getting into some interesting books. I read Reign of Shadows and Endings, Storm of Secrets and Sorrow, and Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance. This is part of the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roerick. This is one of my top tier all-time favorite series, period. This is a very dark, very twisted, modern fantasy. I wouldn't really call it urban fantasy. I mean, like it's just modern elements. It's not set like in a city, so to say. But I devoured this book. They're chunky, but I devoured this one. This story is about Tessa, and Tessa is chosen to become a source for a being called a legacy, and this legacy's name is Theon. And basically what Theon can do is use her magic for himself, hence why it's called a source. And she doesn't want to do this realizes she doesn't want any part of it, so she's kind of rebelling against Theon. Theon's trying to wrangle her. And in their relationship, which is very complicated and very not traditional romance, this is technically a romantasy, but the romance is kind of like, it's just very different. And I know you'll understand what I'm saying when you read it, if you read it, but I just loved these characters so much. I connected with Tessa. I know a lot of people say Tessa's annoying, which she's kind of just erratic. And like, based on her circumstances, I'm like, guys, obviously she would be this way. Like her trauma and her past, which her past includes something that's not really talked about in fantasy books, and it's not a common thing that you see in female main characters, which I really loved. It does go into a little bit of her trauma from being an orphan, and that, to me, hits a little close to home because I have an adopted brother, and seeing her having to deal with all of this stuff, which my brother's situation and Tessa's situation are very different, thankfully, but it's still kind of pulled on my heartstrings a little bit, and I just love her as a character. I think she's really unique, and she's fun if you let her be fun. If you go into it with an open mind and understand that basically she's become a slave to the legacy. And that's a really horrible position to be in considering her past. And this series expands, this is part of the Chaos verse written by Melissa K. Rogue. So it does connect to her other series, Lady of Darkness, which Lady of Darkness is one of my all-time favorite series. I love it so much. I read it a couple months ago and I have not stopped thinking about it since. I will say that I think I prefer Lady of Darkness over Reign of Shadows and Endings, but every single book in this series has been 5 stars. And I do recommend that you read Lady of Darkness before this, because if you read this first, it will spoil Lady of Darkness for you. It will spoil a lot. And I can't say too much more about that because I don't want to spoil anything for you, but read Lady of Darkness, then come back to this. And as you can tell, I very much loved these books. I annotated the crap out of them. Now this next book was kind of, I think I gave it 2 or 3. No, I gave it 3 stars. I read Gleam by Raven Kennedy, which is the 3rd book in the Plated Prisoner series, which is so known, so loved in the book talk community. And I am sad to say that after reading this book, I just gave up on the Plated Prisoner series. I really think that the first 2 books could have been one book, and even part of the 3rd could have been part of the first book. I think it was just dragged on for way too long. I wasn't connecting with the characters of the story. I felt like it was a little cliche and a little like stereotypically romantasy with like the dark wielding MMC and the tortured FMC that has to find her way back and they come together. I don't want to sit here and make fun of it because it wasn't necessarily a bad book. I had fun, but I read part of it physically and then I listened to the rest of it, which this was a book that I was reading when I went to Florida. So I was reading on the flight. I was a little bit distracted, so I think that's part of it. But I'm like, there was really nothing that had me wanting to read the next book. Like, it was finally that moment of like, oh, there's this big reveal. It's like, okay, this is happening. But I'm like, it's too little too late, you know? I'm having to read the synopsis as well, which is also a bad sign if I can't sit here and tell you exactly what this book is about. And I hate to be sitting here on the book, but it's just like, I have to be honest with you about it. So this book follows our main character, Oren, same difference. And she is basically a prisoner for King Midas. This is a King Midas retelling. And so she's kind of trapped in this cage, and King Midas has this power basically to be able to gold touch everything, hence King Midas retelling. And she is kind of living this cozy-ish life in captivity with Midas until a deal is struck with a rival kingdom that kind of like breaks her trust with Midas, and things happen, things go down. She kind of gets a broader understanding of the world and kind of has this moment of, oh, my life that I thought was Midas rescuing me from the slums and giving me this cushy life is not exactly what it seems. And that's the entire first book. There's a little bit more that happens that obviously I can't tell you because it's a spoiler, but like, it felt like one long prologue, and it was kind of like, okay, getting through it. And I think I rated it a little bit higher than I probably, like, if I went back to rate it, I would probably rate it lower than what I'm telling you now, because of the fact that I was just so caught up in like, I have to love this because it's a book talk favorite. And at first I was like, okay, I'm getting into this. Like, I had a positive mindset about it, but now looking back on it, I'm like, I really didn't enjoy that. I kind of just like pushed through it, which is not the goal. goal. I don't want to ever just try to push through a book. That's why I do DNF a lot of books, because I just don't want to waste my time on something that I know I'm not going to completely enjoy when I could be enjoying something else. So that's that. We're going to continue on. Now these next two are novellas that I'm going to kind of talk about in tandem. It's Unrelenting Winds and The Reaper by Melissa K. Rogue. These are little teeny tiny novellas set in the Lady of Darkness universe. Now they're not necessarily required for your Lady of Darkness experience, but I do think they add a level to the characters that these are about. These are about some side characters that you meet in Lady of Darkness that I think it's a good experience, and I think you'll have a good time reading it. Especially, honestly, I think I liked Unrelenting Winds more than The Reaper. They were bad. I gave them both 5 stars. I loved them so much. I am not above rating novellas 5 stars. I love novellas. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're so boring. You just like a little tiny story that like nothing really goes on. I'm like, but you get more time with the characters. So if you love the universe, why not spend more time with the characters when you can? I will tell you about Lady of Darkness again, though, because I can. Lady of Darkness is about a girl named Scarlet Monroe, and she is an assassin, but she is kind of in the middle of being punished by the Assassin Lord. So she is living in a noble's household for about a year until the Assassin Lord comes to her and says, hey, I will grant you your freedom if you do this job for me. And the job is to kill somebody that killed her mother. So it's like, okay, 2 birds, 1 stone, freedom and revenge. So she starts training again, and she runs into this mysterious general and trains with him. And can't tell you more about that, but it's juicy. And so they get kind of going. She's preparing to do this job, but then finds out that there's children that are going missing from her town. And once she starts investigating a little bit more into what's going on, she's like, oh my God, this is a lot bigger than we thought. We need to actually focus on this right now instead of me doing the job for the Assassin Lord. And the rest is history. It's a 5-book series. It's so good. I think if you love Throne of Glass, this will definitely give you Throne of Glass feelings, which I know that's really scary to say because it's like nothing compares to Throne of Glass, but like this one got really freaking close. And it's honestly, Throne of Glass and Lady of Darkness is like, they're like right here, okay? But that is it for my October reads. Yay, we can move on to November. Starting November, we have Dawn of Chaos and Fury, the last book in the Legacy series. I just talked about this. I won't go too far into detail with this, but this one, holy crap, was the perfect conclusion. I honestly was kind of, I don't want to say sad going into this, but I guess you could kind of say sad because it's going to be over. But it's also one of those things I'm like, all of these characters have been through so much that they need a break, but it's also like, I love them, so I don't want to leave them. But it was a perfect ending. I feel like it's gonna leave some readers pissed because of the fact that there is sort of a love triangle that goes on in the first book that I will not tell you certain tropes that are in the later series because, again, that's a spoiler, but I have had so many people comment and say, just tell me who she ends up with. I'm like, I'm not gonna tell you. I can't tell you. And that's part of the fun. You just have to read and find out. But please keep an open mind because it's not what you think. It's not what you think. But I love this one so much. I'm sad to see it go, but I feel like there's so many doors that were left open that we have so much room for expansion in the Chaosverse. I know that she is releasing a new book in a series called Tortured Souls, part of the Avonlea series, which is technically in the Lady of Darkness universe. So there's that. But as far as some of the characters in here, I know without a shadow of a doubt, okay, I say without a shadow of a doubt. I could be totally wrong, but I feel very strongly about a set of characters that I think we're gonna get more of. And there's just, like I said, there's so much room to grow, and I'm so excited. That's the best kind of book where, like, yes, this is the last book in the series, but it sets up the universe so perfectly. The next book that I read was Heavenly Bodies by Amani Aru. This is a reread. I read this back in January because I was preparing for the release of Fallen Stars. And Fallen Stars, yes, is the next book that I read. And so I'm going to kind of talk about them together. But I listened to the audiobook for this one because I was kind of feeling like I was heading towards a little bit of a slump, and this was a 5-star read for me. It's still 5 stars. And I knew that if I tried to eyeball read it, I would probably get a little bit fatigued. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna put the audio on. And I didn't listen to the audiobook the first time through, and I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it. But this book is about a girl named Alara, and she is the princess of this kingdom that has just been destroyed by this star. Stars are kind of like their deities in this universe. By this star Ariete, and she is fleeing her kingdom because she's like, oh no, I don't want to die. And she gets captured by a rival kingdom, Helios, and taken to their king, and their king says, hey, actually, I want to take down Ariete too. Can you help me? Actually, not can you help me, you're gonna help me, and you're gonna train with my son to defeat him. And she's like, well, this is weird because I hate you, but I also hate Ariete, so I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so I guess I will train. So she trains. This book is it's romance first. I guess this is like the definition of romantasy. It's romance first with fantasy, and the second book was a lot more fantasy heavy, which I absolutely ate up. The second book, both of these are 5 stars. I loved the second book. I think the setting of the book, it was more of like a nautical setting because we're in mostly Helios in this book, but we go to another kingdom and another part of the universe in the second book, and it is so good, which I do have a reading vlog for that one. It is spoiler free. So feel free to go watch that one and kind of gauge my reactions, which I guess you can kind of see right now that I'm super excited about it. But anyways, it's so worth it. I understand it's not a completed series yet, but the third book was just announced called Holy Monsters, and it's gonna be so good. And the second book kind of expanded on these characters. There were multiple POVs, which I love multiple POV every single time. I eat it up. And I think if you're kind of new to fantasy and you're wanting a little bit more romance, I think this is the perfect place to start. The way that Imani writes is just so beautiful. The setting, like the way that she describes the settings in her book is just so, I guess you could say, atmospheric and very just descriptive and vivid. Like I really feel like I'm there, and it's just beautiful. The world that she's created is just like, they have cotton candy clouds, if that tells you anything. Now this next book I read, I gave it 2 stars. Because it was one of those that, like, okay, in my rating scale, 1 star is I should have DNF'd. 2 stars is, well, I got through it and it was fine. 3 stars is like, okay, this is fine, this is good. 4 is like, oh, this is really good. 5 is like, this is top tier. But I gave this one 2 stars. It's In the Veins of the Drowning by Kaylee Cassidy. I thought I was gonna love this one because after reading Fallen Stars, I was very much in the mood for something nautical, something with mermaids, siren. This book has to deal with sirens and very much sea setting, so to say. And I was really in the mood for it, and it kind of let me down. And I was really disappointed because I felt like I just wasn't connecting to the main characters. I couldn't tell you what it's about, but when I was reading it, it was kind of like I was guessing everything, which is really disappointing because I'm not somebody who can guess things super easily. I do have critical thinking skills, but I found myself sitting here, I was like, oh, I bet this is the case. And then a couple pages later, it was the case. And I was like, dadgummit. But if I'm not connecting with the main characters, I'm not gonna care about the plot. And that was the problem with me. I'm like, I feel like these characters were super cliche and the writing wasn't necessarily bad. I just didn't care for the story, so to say. And I don't think I'm gonna be continuing the series. Let me look at the synopsis to kind of give you a more accurate description of what this was about, because this was another one, like, I have not thought about it since I finished it. Okay, so basically this book is about a siren named Imogen, and she is a part of this court where basically sirens are very much hated. They are cast out and killed in this society. And so she's kind of trying to hide because she is part of the noble family. And there's a lot of like court politics that go into this because there was this one kingdom that came to visit her court, and she ended up meeting the king, and the king was like, I can actually help you. And they run away together, but then find out that the evil that was part of her court that she was trying to hide from is not actually the big bad evil that was really coming to it. And like I said, she's been a siren in hiding for so long that she's kind of like still in the process of discovering her powers and kind of figuring out what she can do. And she finds out that she is part of the solution to the big bad problem. It's a quick read, it's not very long. I had a physical copy, but I already sold it on Pango Books because I was just like, meh, I'm not gonna keep this. It is what it is, and I know a lot of people have loved this book, and I don't know if it was just because since I was in the mood for something very specific and it didn't deliver that I didn't like it, or just, I don't know. Something went wrong, I didn't like it, we're moving on. Now, of course, I had to reread Quicksilver by Callie Hart in preparation for Brimstone by Callie Hart. I will say that when I first read Quicksilver, I rated it 5 stars. And on the reread, I think I would probably give it a 4-star now. I did the audiobook this time because it was another one of those, because I was fresh out of In the Veins of the Drowning, not really having a good time. I was like, you know what? I loved Quicksilver. I'm gonna put on the audio. It's gonna be good, which the audiobook is really good. It's duet narration, which is so much fun. But I feel like this one, you need to go into it thinking you're gonna have a fun time and not like this is high fantasy. And I think that was part of my problem, because I feel like a lot of what happened in the first book, yes, there was totally theories that I had, which one of them turned out to be true, which I was shocked. I was like, I had the theory, so I wasn't super shocked, but I was shocked that it actually came true, that I guessed it. But this is another one I do have a reading vlog for Brimstone that's spoiler free, so definitely go check that one out. But I think it's kind of like borderline, this is gonna expand fantasy-wise, and it's gonna have that higher fantasy aspect, but for now, it was kind of just like a silly, goofy, fun time with Kingfisher and Saris. Like, that doesn't sound like a rave review, but I did have a fun time. I really enjoyed this one. I think I will definitely continue to recommend this series, especially this is another one that if you're kind of new to fantasy, this is a good one, because it's fun, but there's still that aspect of like court politics, which Brimstone definitely expanded on the politics, which I really, really liked. And I feel like a lot of people, if they did not like Brimstone, it was because of the expansion of the fantasy, which I'm like, that's what I like. I rated Brimstone 4.25. Yeah, I rated Brimstone 4.25 stars. I enjoyed it more than Quicksilver, which I think in my video I said I enjoyed Quicksilver more, which I didn't mean that. I meant I enjoyed Brimstone more. But it was totally worth the wait. Still, I had such a fun time reading it. I think I devoured it so quickly that I'm like, part of me wants to reread, because I did read it so quickly that I'm like, it's over. I waited almost a year for this book, because I read Quicksilver in January, so it's been a while. But let me give you the synopsis of Quicksilver if you're curious. This story is about Saris Fane, and she is kind of surviving in her society by being a thief. She needs to take care of her and her brother, and one day she steals this metal gauntlet from a guard, which is basically a death sentence, and she gets taken to the queen and unintentionally opens a portal between realms when she is at this castle. And she is transported into a land of the Fae, which the Fae have been kind of myths for who knows how long. And she actually has these like secret little powers and is called an alchemist. So she is transported into this new realm as an alchemist, which she doesn't really know what all that means, but the people in the Fae know what that means. And so they're like, hey, actually, we need your help to kind of stop this war that's going on. And she's like, this kind of sucks because I need to get home to my brother, and you want me to help with your war? Haha. But they're like, okay, but if you help us, we'll send you back home. And she's like, deal. So she gets involved with Kingfisher of the Aegean Gate, and it becomes so much more than just her helping him win a war and her trying to get home. Now, a lot of the first book is her doing a certain task to help Kingfisher with this war, and it's not the most fast-paced. I will say Brimstone's a little bit more fast-paced. There's a lot more going on, I guess you could say. But these books are very different, and a little bit of a warning, the first book does end in a gnarly cliffhanger. Well, both of them end in a crazy cliffhanger. But I do think it's gonna set up the next book for a very interesting start, which I'm excited for, which I think it's gonna be released next November. So we still have to wait a year. It's fine. It's fine. This one just came out. It's totally fine. One thing that I really, really enjoy about the series is the characters, specifically Carrion, which I'm not gonna tell you too much about Carrion, but he is kind of like the perfect comedic relief side character. And every time he's on page, I just Eat it up. It is fantastic. And I think we got so much more of an insight to a lot of these characters, at least in Brimstone. And I think if you enjoyed Quicksilver and you want more from the story, Brimstone is going to be a hit for you. But overall, fun experience, definitely recommend. I think this is setting up this specific universe for a very epic conclusion, and I'm very excited about it because I love it when books start out as like kind of a seemingly like unassuming romantasy, and it's like, this is a fun time, this is giggly, the romance is good, the fantasy is good, but I want more, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds, and then in the last book it's like, dun dun dun, this is actually what's going on, this is the big plot, it's epic, it's huge. I love that, and I have a feeling it's gonna be this series too. The next book was On Wings of Blood by Briar Bolin. Guys, I had such high hopes for this book, and I ended up DNFing at 65%. And here's the problem. I liked the concept of this book. Basically, it's about a girl who is mysteriously transported into another realm, which we don't know what happened in her original realm. She's just kind of dropped into this new one, and this is a society full of vampires, and she is basically told, hey, you're gonna be betrothed to basically a vampire prince, and you have to go to this academy and train because you have dragon rider blood. But guess what? Dragons are extinct, so it's not even like she's training for anything practical. I don't know. And a lot of people, obviously, they're gonna compare it to Fourth Wing because it's an academic setting and they're talking about dragons. However, I do not think you should compare this to Fourth Wing. It's very different, and I didn't like the main character. I do like the male main character. I think he's very much Draco-coded, which I love that, but there was nothing that kept me wanting to turn the page, honestly. I feel like the main character's priorities were very much out of order. She never thought about like, hey, this is weird. I'm being forced to go to a school after being transported to another realm. Hey, guess what? It's weird that you were actually in another realm to begin with. Shouldn't you be trying to figure out either how to get back there or like what's actually going on? Because if I was just one day dropped into another realm and told you're gonna go to the school, I'd be like, no. I would not be cooperative, which I guess she's like a little bit outnumbered and the vampires are scary. But she's not even trying to fight back, really. She's just being snarky and like trying to uncover like, hey, your society is messed up and there's just a lot of that's going on that you shouldn't think are normal. And that's pretty much it. And I found myself dreading picking it up, and I don't really care what happens because I really wanted the story to go in a different direction. It is not going there, so I guess that's a me thing? I don't know. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about it. I'm just a little disappointed. Now this last book, we're here. We're at the last book of the 2 months. I was not disappointed by this last book. This is Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair. Now I was a little bit skeptical going into this because I have read A Touch of Darkness, the series by Scarlett St. Clair, and it was not my favorite. I ended up really not liking A Touch of Chaos. And I don't know if it was like a writing issue or like a story issue or whatever. I know I just didn't enjoy it. And so I had heard really good things about this one, and I ended up impulse buying it because it was signed. They always get me if they're signed. And I heard this deals with a lot of religious themes and religious trauma, and it's about this girl who basically makes a living as a thief. She steals artifacts and sells them to sketchy people, basically. But she is actually the daughter and the heir of an entire city, I guess you could say. But she's the heir to an empire. But she's like, no, I want nothing to do with that. So she kind of goes to this other district that is known for basically being like the worst of people, because this society is ruled by the church, and the church has some pretty messed up ideas about how the world should be run. And so she one day gets her hands on this dagger, tries to go sell it, and a lot of people are being super squirrely about it. So then she finds out that this dagger is actually something really, really coveted by the church, and this is kind of friends-ish to lovers, I would say, which is kind of my first experience with that trope, because at first glance I'm like, I don't know how that's gonna go, but no, really good. The MMC yearns for her, I will say. So if you love a yearning man, this is definitely for you. But I would say that definitely check the trigger warnings and be very mindful, because I feel like this theming is very intense. And as somebody who grew up in the church, it's like, there were some things that I'm like, okay, like, that's a little far-fetched, but some things I'm like, yeah, the fact that you pointed that out is like, yeah, that needed to be said. And I don't think this book is gonna be for everybody, but the cliffhanger was crazy. The reveal at the end, I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be really interesting. Oh, my light died. Okay, that's better. Where were we? Yeah, I think the ending was really interesting, and I love how it kind of transitioned from her being this like artifact thief into actually trying to uncover like the mystery and the politics of the church. And it was just really interesting because I feel like in her life, she's had so many experiences that have contributed to her views about everything. And it's kind of like a deconstruction of everything that she's ever known, which I think that sets up the character development to be really interesting, because once you have that moment in life where you're like, hey, what I've been taught does not line up with what I believe, it's so interesting. And like I said, be very careful with this one, but I do think it's definitely worth the read if you're interested in anything that I just said. I will definitely be continuing the series too. Did I mention it was an urban fantasy too? I love urban fantasy. That is all I have for you, my friends. Thank you for watching. If you have made it all the way to the end of this video, comment your favorite read from the last 2 months, and I will see you next time, my friends.